morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee is set to resume its inquiry into the flood control scandal today, January 19.
Former Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan is now back in the country amid the flood control probe.
The Justice Department is calling it unethical for the lawyer of Atong Ang to tell him not to surrender.
China has filed a diplomatic protest against Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, over social media posts critical of its leaders.
First in the news, the Senate is continuing its investigation into alleged irregularities in flood control projects. The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee is set to resume its hearings January 19, with lawmakers expected to dig deeper into claims of flawed data submissions and possible cover-ups involving so-called ghost projects. DPWH officials are expected to testify as the committee seeks to determine whether the errors were accidental or deliberate. Some senators have called on Secretary Manuel Bonoan to explain following claims of massive kickbacks, and amid calls for accountability among top officials and even lawmakers.
The Justice Department is set to take its first step in scrutinizing high-profile plunder allegations involving former and sitting lawmakers. Here is the report.
Starting this week, the Department of Justice will begin its preliminary investigation into plunder complaints against former Senator Bong Revilla and Senator Jinggoy Estrada. The complaints are linked to alleged kickbacks they received from anomalous flood control projects. Both Revilla and Estrada have denied the allegations.
I believe by next week, this coming week, we will be issuing the subpoenas already in connection with those cases.
Dahil may amount involved dyan eh. That encompasses not just projects in Bulacan, but nationwide.
The DOJ also clarified that no witness has recanted or withdrawn their testimony. Earlier, the camp of former DPWH District Engineer Henry Alcantara also denied reports that he had retracted his statement. Alcantara is among the 4 individuals earlier named by the DOJ as state witnesses. But should any of them end up recanting, the DOJ said this could affect their credibility as witnesses.
What are the consequences of retracting? Marami ho. Marami. It affects your status. And if you're an applicant who worked so hard to get into the witness protection program, for you to retract your statement, ano na yun eh? Too much work, and it's a disservice to their own self.
The DOJ is also set to decide on other flood control cases next week. Among these are the alleged ghost projects in Bulacan involving Sims Construction.
Alright, so today is the day, the resumption of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, yung kanilang investigation sa flood control mess na ito.
Starting this.
Headed by Senator Panfilo Lacson. Of course, itutuloy nila yung probe into the other, those involved na nabanggit sa last hearing na hindi pa na kasama yung corroborative witnesses supposedly. So we'll see kung sino yung mga invited at sino pupunta.
And the Ombudsman has already filed cases nga against Senator Bong Revilla and the other co-accused. And syempre, ang malaking tanong din dito, kasi sinabi nga ng yung testigo, di ba, sa Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, I forgot, Bernardo, sabi nga
Yusek
niya,
Bernardo, former Yusek
si Bryce, Henry Alcantara, na nag-deliver sila ng pera directly kay Senator Bong Revilla.
Sa bahay
and
daw
one good question as well, na kasi ang pinag-uusapan dito na district ay sa Bulacan.
Yes.
Diba? So ano ang ginagawa ni Senator Bong Revilla doon sa area na yon? Bakit doon kumukuha ng fund kung siya ay taga Cavite?
Yeah, pero senator ka naman eh. When you're a senator, wala ka ng inaano distrito.
Isa rin yung sa kino-question kasi.
Oo. Usually, pag senator ka, nationwide na ang approach mo eh. Yung congressman, yun naman nakatali sa districts nila. So,
yeah, pero
madalas,
still, ang alam nila kasi, pag gumagalaw ka, of course, like si Senator Joel Villanueva, di ba, sa Bulacan siya. Kahit senador siya, ang tama nung allegation sa kanya sa Bulacan pa rin. But we'll see paano magiging investigation nila dito. And of course, yung inaabangan tulad ng pinag-uusapan natin dito yung sa Senate Blue Ribbon Committee dahil former Secretary, DPWH Secretary si Manny Bonoan is back here in the Philippines. Actually, there was a request from him na mag-extend siya sana one more month.
Recovery ng asawa niya. Yeah.
Pero yun nga, sabi ni Ombudsman Remulla, parang overstaying na siya noon.
Yeah.
'Di ba nung sinabi nga dapat December 17, dapat andito na siya. Pero ayun nga, so kahapon, the other night, kahapon ba yun, nakita nga na sinabi ng BI na nandito na siya. So kung pupunta siya doon, sa mismong Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, yan ang abangan natin. Although meron na nga invitation, siya, Ko, and others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Si Ko, wala talaga yan.
Wala. Hindi natin alam kung matagal. Hanggang ngayon, hindi alam kung nasaan siya.
Alright, speaking of which, you were talking about former Secretary Manny Bonoan. Former DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan has returned to the Philippines according to the Bureau of Immigration. The BI said Bonoan arrived at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport on Sunday morning aboard a China Airlines flight from Taipei, Taiwan. Bonoan left the country last year after accompanying his wife to the United States for medical treatment. He is under an immigration lookout bulletin order issued earlier by the Department of Justice in connection with the investigation into the flood control scandal. And speaking of which, he arrived already. Naglabasan yung mga camera footage sa airport na sa immigration siya.
Kasi there are also allegations, if you can remember dun sa press con ni Senator Ping Lacson na allegedly, di ba, na parang minali daw talaga, sinadya na magbigay ni then Secretary DPWH Bonoan ng mga maling coordinates dun sa sumbong sa Pangulo website.
Oo, sa Malacanang.
Yung coordinates kung saan mga lugar yung mga anomalous flood control projects. No?
Para pag chinek, hindi tutugma.
Yes, but according to Secretary Dizon, sabi niya, he can confirm na may mga mali talagang coordinates doon sa nilagay doon sa sumbong sa Pangulo website. But, hindi muna siya magsasalita regarding kung deliberate ba na ginawa yun.
It's either deliberate ginawa or hindi deliberate pero hindi rin siya aware.
Hindi aware.
Pinirmahan lang niya yung sino man gumawa ng false coordinates. So let's see. Pero other witnesses would say na utos ni Sec Bonoan di ba? Others have been saying
Yeah. So, ang sinasabi nila dito, siya mismo ang naglagay ng mga coordinates.
I think naman pag secretary, hindi mo na siguro pwedeng inutos niya, di ba? But let's see.
I don't know. Kasi siya yung mismo naglagay, as I've said, Pero, yun nga din, pinag-uusapan din dito yung Cabral Files na sabi ni Senator Ping Lacson, we will be fair here. Sabi niya ganun, hanggat hindi na-authenticate ng mga taga-DPWH yung mga files, then it will not be included in the investigation.
Yes.
So, even if sabi niya itong hawak ko, kasi sinasabi ni Senator Lacson, he possesses some files also from Cabral sa DPWH.
The late secretary.
Sabi niya ganun. But yun, kung hindi yung ma-authenticate, hindi natin isasama yun sa investigation.
Yes.
So, we'll see kung ano yung mangyayari dito sa magiging flood control resumption ng Senate Blue Ribbon Committee today. Kasi if you can remember, before ito matapos, sabi nila, ibibigay na lahat, even in the Congress, diba? Ibigay na lahat sa ICI yung investigation.
Yes.
Then ICI will recommend cases sa Ombudsman. Pero since yun nga, medyo nagde-dwindle down yung ICI, ito, pasok ulit.
Tsaka iba naman ang pakay ng Blue Ribbon sa ICI.
In aid of legislation.
Yun. Meron din yun. Pero of course, may investigative powers din ang Blue Ribbon para i-submit for a resolution kung suggestion nila kung dapat kasuhan o hindi. Let's see what will happen.
Alright, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News, and this just in, we have an information na naghain po ng impeachment complaint against. This is the first impeachment complaint against President Bongbong Marcos. This is endorsed by Pusong Pinoy Party List Representative Journey Jet Nisay. Yung mga grounds of impeachment niya ay include yung kanyang sinasabi na betrayal of public trust dahil dun sa pagsuko kay former President Rodrigo Duterte sa ICC. Kasama din yung, of course, hindi niya pag-veto ng mga unprogrammed appropriations sa budget. And kasama rin yung allegation ng graft at corruptions sa kickbacks at ghost projects. Yan yung mga articles of impeachment na pinasa sa House of Representatives today. Again, endorsed by Representative Journey Jetnisay of Pusong Pinoy Party List. Ito na nga yung pinag-uusapan weeks ago na merong nga daw napipintong impeachment complaint na ifa-file kay President Bongbong
So of course, this will be transmitted from the House Secretariat or House Secretary General either directly if there's numbers to plenary to put it to a vote kasi kung may numero, diretso na yan, or dadaan sa Committee on Justice at doon they will determine sufficiency in form and substance
ng evidence, ng articles of the impeachment.
Form muna tapos substance.
So tingnan natin kung anong kakahinat na nitong first ever, 'di ba, na impeachment complaint filed against the sitting president.
But we all know the current administration has the numbers. So, parang suntok sa buwan ang paglusot nito.
Well, if you can remember also, weeks ago, as I've said kanina, it was Congressman Egay Erice
who talked about it.
Who talked about it, who mentioned about this, na sabi niya, may napipintong magfa-file ng impeachment complaint against the president. At ito na nga yun. And this is actually a developing story. We'll give you yung iba pang updates later on in the program. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice slams Atong Ang's legal counsel for advising their client not to surrender. Here's the report.
The Department of Justice criticized Attorney Gabriel Villarreal, lawyer of businessman Charlie Atong Ang, for advising him not to surrender, calling it ill-advised and unethical.
The suggestion to not follow the court order by the court na lawful puno issued by a competent court would be, I would say that suggestion is ill-advised and not only unethical but also potentially criminal.
This came after the Santa Cruz Laguna Regional Trial Court issued arrest warrants against Ang and several others individuals for the non-bailable charge of kidnapping with homicide, as well as kidnapping and serious illegal detention in connection with the case of the missing Sabongeros. The Lipa City Regional Trial Court later issued another arrest warrant against Ang. According to the DOJ, the advice could have legal consequences for Villarreal and his client.
Because it's a lawful order, any resistance to comply with it and disobedience to the enforcement of said warrant is punishable. Meron po yung kaakibat na penalty under the law.
The DOJ urged Ang to face the charges against him.
Face your charges head on. We've said this before. Diba? The law and the courts provide with processes to submit your evidence, to defend yourself. Any witnesses against you, you will have the chance to cross-examine them. And if you are indeed innocent, we want you to prove your innocence. Right? We want you to stand trial and face these charges.
Meanwhile, the DOJ said there are still no conclusive findings that the DNA of the missing Sabongeros matches the bones recovered from Taal Lake, where the victims' remains were allegedly dumped, based on earlier statements of whistleblower Julie Dondon Patidongan, also known as alias Totoy. Alias Totoy had previously identified Ang as the alleged mastermind behind the disappearance of the Sabongeros.
But I think one thing we should make clear is, hindi naman po kailangan na ma-discover ang cadaver or ang katawan bago po tayo magka-finding ng that murder or homicide was indeed committed. Okay? This can be proved through other evidence. And because the case was already filed in court, I think it's very safe to say, no? I think based on the quantum of proof na talagang these crimes were committed irrespective of the fact na walang katawan na tagpuan.
The DOJ added that Patidongan's statements are significant to the case, but clarified that these are not the sole basis for determining the existence of prima facie evidence.
Hindi po yun yung sole basis for making the determination na may prima facie evidence against Atong Ang and the other respondents for the commission of the crimes. Because testimony alone, if not corroborated by other pieces of evidence material to the case, will not suffice.
Right. So, syempre nakakagulat din, 'di ba, sa mga katulad nga nito na nangyari na sa isang lawyer, ng advice niya, 'di ba? Usually naman talaga ang isang lawyer dapat adherence to the rule of law. 'Yun ang laging advice mo sa kliyente mo. But this time around, nagulat talagang marami when he said that he advised his client, Atong Ang, na wag muna mag-surrender because they are pending, may mga motion pa kasi sila. And parang sinasabi niya, premature daw itong warrant of arrest na to, blah, blah, blah.
Tsaka madami nagsasabi rin sa legal field na sinasabi, meron din yung mitigating and aggravating circumstances. So bakit mo tuturuan yung kliyente mo magkaroon ng aggravating circumstances? In case this goes to trial, and the judge decides on certain things, tsaka yung final verdict. Of course,
this will show.
They will take into consideration circumstances, di ba?
Kung you didn't surrender when the warrant was released.
Tapos payo pa ng abogado.
Oo. So, medyo mahirap nga yung ganyang sitwasyon. But, yun nga, for context, si Charlie Atong Ang ay, of course, meron pong nirelease na warrant of arrest sa kanya doon nga sa kaso ng mga missing sabongeros. And sinabi ng DOH, is armed and dangerous at meron daw 10 million na reward doon sa mga pagtuturo kung nasaan itong si Atong Ang. So far, well, according sa Bureau of Immigration, sa kanilang monitoring, he's still here in the country, no? Okay.
All right. In other news, heavy rains from Tropical Storm Ada caused flooding in parts of Albay, adding to the struggles of residents as Mayon volcano remains under alert level 3. Here is the report.
Floodwaters continued to swamp parts of Libon, Albay following rains from Tropical Storm Ada. Drone footage from News 5 showed rice fields and other farmlands underwater. Farmer Edna Sazon can only look at her 6 hectares of rice fields, which may no longer be usable after the typhoon. Her crops were only planted 3 days before Ada hit.
Nung nakaraang bagyo doon po yung Uwan, grabe yung epekto, wala kaming halos maani. Then ito na naman po yung Ada. Yung mga riprap, yung mga ilog, walang seguridad kasi sirang-sira. Yung mga flood control, sirang-sira. Kaya yung mga magsasaka po, hindi sigurado na makakabawi ng mga sakahan nila.
Libon often becomes a catch basin for floodwaters from nearby towns such as Kamalig, Ginubatan, Owas, and Pulangi, causing waters to remain for 2 to 3 days even after the rain stops. In the town of Ginubatan, cleanup operations have begun to remove the sand and rocks washed away by the lahar flow. Local officials are appealing to the DPWH and President Bongbong Marcos to address their situation, saying the damage could have been prevented with a proper flood control project.
Baka pwede naman i-exclude ang ng ginubatan sa mga sabi hindi na muna mag-ano ng mga flood control project. Baka pwedeng i-revisit niyo yung namin, yung bayan para makita ninyo na may kailangan talaga ng flood control.
All right, to talk about issues that hound the Blue Ribbon Committee and also the recent developments of PBBM's impeachment complaint that was filed earlier today, we have Dr. Froilan Calilung from the USC Department of Political Science. Good morning, Doc. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Doc. Doc, can you hear us okay?
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Hello, Doc. All right.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, Doc, let's start off with the Blue Ribbon Committee that would resume today. Medyo critical itong mga hearing na ito because medyo gutom ang tao sa isang resolution for all this corruption. So, ano dapat i-focus nila dito? Kasi para hindi medyo kalat ang magiging pag-handle.
Well, basically, since I think they need to take this opportunity since the former secretary of DPWH is already back.
That's right.
I think all of the investigations should actually zero in on that level right now at this moment. And then if ever they will, I hope that they were able to gather enough resource persons over the break that they had, so that we will be expecting something, something else, something different, and something that is really substantial in this forthcoming hearings. And I hope the former secretary of DPWH will be able to come up with, very substantive. Call this mechanisms, and the truth eventually will actually come out. Because I totally agree with that, Sir Diego, that the people are really wanting
Yes.
to really know a lot of things, especially because the president made a lot of promises last year, and true enough, until this time of the year, no, wala pa rin tayo nakikitang magandang resulta. So I think moving on. With the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, I hope that they will be able to come up with something else, something different, and something that is going to at least be a good news for many of us.
Of course, Doc, alam mo naman yung mga Pinoy, they're going to watch out for this because matagal na nababanggit si former Secretary Bonoan with all these issues, and they want to see if he is going to point to someone higher. Di ba, Doc?
Yeah, actually, especially in that right now, kasi remember that in the past, when this issue came about, when it blew out in the open, he was still a part of the administration. So I believe there's some restraints, maybe there are some forces still trying to
That's right.
restrain him from giving out his all-out knowledge or insider information here. Pero right now na yun nga, wala na siya sa gobyerno, ang panalangin natin dito ay talagang maisulong niya at mailatag talaga niya lahat ng kanyang nalalaman para malaman natin talaga yung puno-dulo nito. Kasi at the end of the day, I think many of our countrymen are also tired already of the government giving us yung mga small fries, no, yung mga maliliit na
hibi
mga
daw, hibi.
Yeah, wala halos tayong nakikitang malalaking isla. And alam naman natin that, yung lagi ko sinasabi, a corruption of this magnitude could only be orchestrated by people who have the power and who possess the authority.
That's right.
So, kinakailangan talaga natin malaman kung sino yung nasa pinakataas. So, this will be a true test of character for Secretary Bonoan if he is going and if he's willing to already name names here. We shall see. Otherwise, baka wala tayong makuha na naman dito. So, masasayang lang yung pagdinig na gagawin. Yun yung sanang mangyari dito sa proceeding na to.
Well, Doc, what are your thoughts naman doon sa the resumption of the hearing itself, as a whole? Because a lot of people or some people would point out that this hearing is just to fill in the gap or the void na, for that matter, ang ICC is in limbo. So ICI rather is in limbo. So do you think itong blue ribbon hearings are still important, that they will still gather important necessary information?
Well, it will depend mainly on the leadership of the committee, and to be honest, on my end, during the time that Orly Gutesa actually submitted himself to the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, and that he already started naming big names, or giving out, the allegations to these big people. And then he was cut short, he was cut off to the point that parang lumalabas siya pa yung may kasalanan later on. Doon medyo nagkaroon ng taong bayan, nagkaroon ng marami sa atin ng duda regarding what really is the purpose and intent of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee under Senator Ping Lacson. And if it is really adamant about really going after these big fishes na hindi niya talaga po proteksyonan at wala siyang pagtatakpan, that is left to be seen, or that is yet to be seen at this point in time, because the truth of the matter is, maraming mga senators mismo, they're saying that the leadership of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee right now under Ping Lacson is really quite questionable. It leaves a lot of room for doubts regarding the sincerity and the motivations of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee chairman regarding what he really intends to do or how he really intends to orchestrate the hearing, because marami talagang marami ang nag-iisip, maraming agam-agam na nabubuo na hindi talaga niya tinutumbok yung talagang Yun nga, yung gusto nating malaman. Maalala natin sa mga nakaraang pagdinig, instead na malaman natin that all of these things patungkol doon sa liderato, patungkol doon sa may mga makapangyarihan na may hawak ng ating budget, anong nangyari may mga ilang senador ang may implicate. Na hindi ko sinasabi na hindi tama yon. Actually, that is right. Pero somewhat along the way, we should not lose track of what really is the purpose and intent nitong investigasyon na to, at hindi natin i-divert sa iba't ibang mga personalidad na ang nawawala doon sa purview natin, yung mga mas malalaking mga personalidad dito sa issue.
Doc, how critical is it na this time around, no? Kasi parang napabayaan speaking of Orly Gutesa, napabayaan na hanapin si Orly Gutesa who is still missing. So how important is it for this leadership of Senator Ping Lacson, who is medyong rocky daw, to look for Orly Gutesa and to present him again once and for all? Whether regardless kung yung statement niya ay totoo o hindi, at least nakikita mo hindi ka takot na ilabas si Orly Gutesa.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, no. And I think ito nga yung medyo hindi natin din maintindihan, ano. With all the resources, with all the money, with all the intelligence funds that the government actually has in their disposal, how come they are not able to execute or to do these things primarily, no? Kasi kung talagang gusto naman, mayroong paraan, definitely. And I think kinakailangan lang talaga nilang yun nga, seryosohin at mas maging mas maging decisive talaga sila this time around, because the entire nation is actually watching and the whole country is actually waiting for the end of this flood control myth actually unfold. And I think at this point in time, yun nga, kinakailangan talagang ibangon, no, ni Ping Lacson yung Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, dahil nga yung the ICI is already perceived to be, a failure in many of the people's perception. Hindi talaga nagmaterialize. So wala na tayong ibang patutunguhan dito kundi itong Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, and hopefully they will also be able to shed light on this issue. So yung kay Orly Gutesa, tingin ko naman hindi lamang si Orly Gutesa ang nakakaalam nito, no. Tingin ko kinakailangan yung Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, if they're really sincere and serious about this, they could actually try to look for other Orly Gutesas. I mean, people who actually have knowledge, direct-hand information about these things. And from there, makikita natin kung magko-corroborate ba?
That's right.
Or magdi-disagree ba yung mga sasabihin nila doon sa naunang nabanggit ni Orly Gutesa.
Well, Doc, I wanna ask you na rin, take this opportunity to ask you regarding the first impeachment complaint filed against the President, no? President Bongbong Marcos. Ito ay kararating lamang na balita kanina lamang, at ito na ang pinag-uusapan na magkakaroon talaga siya ng impeachment complaint. Anong masasabi niyo dito? What are your thoughts on this? Ito po ba ay nung nakita natin yung articles, have you read the articles of impeachment? Do you think there's parang basis talaga doon sa kanilang complaint against the President, or this is just a deviation doon sa mga nangyayari ngayon?
Well, if you look at the basis for the articles of impeachment, and if they're going to, I think most likely they're going to be using the betrayal of public trust, tsaka culpable violation of the Constitution, definitely naman, doon lamang sa pagpirma nung GAA 2025, maliwanag naman doon na meron talagang impeachable offense, no? But, iba kasi yung tinitingnan natin dito from a legal perspective as well as from a political point of view, no? So, tingnan natin dito, unang-una is that is the Congress, especially the allies ng bloke ni Martin Romualdez, are they still willing to support the President? Is Sandro Marcos going to be instrumental enough in blocking this move dito sa lower house? Is Speaker D going to have a hand in this as well? So maraming dynamics, maraming forces. Although there are several things going against the President. Number one, his trust and popularity ratings is really going down. Talagang pasad agad siya, and he is already going to the lame duck phase of his administration, definitely. And this may actually compel several lawmakers to actually vote in favor doon sa kanyang impeachment. So, titignan natin dito, no, unang-una, kung gaano ba talaga kalakas pa rin yung sway at saka yung political clout ng ating Pangulo dito sa lower house kahit wala na dyan si Martin Romualdez. And then titignan din natin dito, no, kung ano yung magiging impression ng mga mambabatas natin. Siyempre, kung titignan natin kung public pressure ang titignan, merong public pressure definitely because as the survey rankings is actually showing, the numbers will not lie that the people are really not in support already of the president at this point.
Doc,
Well, I wanna follow up lang ito kay Doc. Having said that, Doc, do you believe that there is actually a recontemplating among the congressmen in the House of Representatives of their political alliance, knowing na somehow yung numbers na nabanggit mo, bumababa yung Pangulo, medyo steady pa rin yung kay Vice President Sara Duterte?
Yeah, actually, this two, yung dynamics kasi nung dalawa, they will always be connected Primarily because kung titignan naman natin, ang mga nagsulong din naman ng impeachment labang kay Bongbong Marcos, ito rin naman yung mga pumapanik naman or mga nagsaside naman kay VP, no? Primarily. And kung titignan natin, medyo, talaga siya, medyo malaki yung pagkakahalintulad, no? Especially because both of them are coming from allegations of corruption mainly, pero ang kailangan natin kasing makita rito, no, what will be the implication of this, especially heading into the 2028 elections. Kung nakita ng mga mababatas natin na meron pa ring firepower itong si Vice President Sara Duterte, especially nung nakaraang halalan, wherein majority of the people that she supported, they all won, at least marami sa kanila nanalo, at yung mga kumalaban sa kanya naman, marami natalo, at yung mga kandidato naman na sinuportahan ng Pangulo, yung ilan dito ay hindi naman natalo. I mean hindi nanalo. So, yung mga congressmen natin, syempre iniisip nila what will be their future coming into the 2028 elections, especially presidential elections yan. Many of them are actually running for re-elective or re-election positions. So, they're also thinking of what will be their political future. No? So, yung mga yung mga titignan natin dito. Plus, of course, tignan natin what is the public perception about this? I mean, is the people already sick and tired of impeachment? Are we getting enough traction from this? Kasi baka naman sobrang iniisip natin politically itong impeachment, pero yung pulso naman ng mga kababayan natin, ang iniisip nila yung hirap ng buhay, yung political and economic uncertainty, hindi na to yung kanilang gustong mangyari basically, no? So ito kinakailangan malaman din natin primarily because yung mga congressmen na yan, they are all beholden to their constituents to some extent, kasi sila yung bumoboto sa kanila. So if the public is no longer supportive of this impeachment, then they might be thinking twice about supporting it.
Of course, Doc, I'd like to ask you, you're talking about impeachment, there's an incoming impeachment pending the MR from the Supreme Court para kay VP Sara then before Feb 6. Now, if you have two impeachment complaints, one's a president, one's a vice president, we all know a lot of lobbying will happen sa Congress between both sides. Ang tanong ko, Doc, is how important is it that we take a look at the middle ground, the progressive, the pinks and the yellows? Because let's face it, kahit may solid ground si PBBM at VP Sara, yung mga solid base nila, yung sway votes tend to be in the middle.
Right, that's true. I mean, if we're talking about the votation, for the impeachment, titignan din natin dito kasi yung numero nitong mga liberals tsaka ng mga dilaw, both in the lower house and in the Congress. And I think right now, hindi siya ganong karami unless, of course, they have already forged kahit siguro an informal coalition with the PBBM bloc. Yun, siguro magiging formidable sila. Pero right now kasi, kukonti lang yung kanilang numero. No? So, even in the elections, I think ito nga, hindi pa naman klaro ngayon, kumbaga it's not yet cast in stone, pero may mga usapin na possible na coalition that will be formed between the administration and the progressives, just to be able to topple down the possible presidential bid of VP Sara. Pero yun nga, right now kasi, everything is, I think, geared towards ensuring that VP Sara will be impeached. Because if she will be impeached, that will be the end of her political career. And I think from then magiging mas maliwanag na yung dynamics, no, yung galawan between the administration bloc tsaka ng mga progressives. So the biggest threat and the biggest stumbling block still remains to be the VP at this point. So if they cannot muster enough strength, or if this impeachment against the VP will not gain traction in this year, I think by next year it's going to be improbable already for them to be able to launch a good impeachment complaint against her that will, successfully result in a possible conviction. Otherwise, it's going to be, 2028 showdown talaga to between the administration, the progressives, and the vice president.
So, Doc, it's interesting. No, you mentioned that most possibly that the progressives, the middles, liberals, and pinks would likely forge an alliance with PBBM. The reason why I'm going to ask you this is because alam naman natin, yung mga liberals and progressives had long been fighting the Marcos brand since time memorial. So do you think they would be more inclined to join PBBM rather than VP Sara, or to stand their ground on their own?
Well, if you're going to judge it from their actions and their statements nitong mga nakaraang buwan, especially during the height of this flood control scandal, nakita naman natin that they are not very vocal about trying to put a stand against the president, but rather they're still harboring their yung kanilang purpose and intent is still focused on the vice president. So basically, I think posibleng mangyari yan. Laging nga natin sinasabi sa politics is the art of the possible. No, anything could happen. Because in politics, wala talaga tayong permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interest.
Totoo yan. I agree.
Pwedeng mangyari yun. Yun nga lang, syempre, ang titingnan natin dito is what will be the impression that the imprint that it will leave into the electorate. If they're willing to actually compromise their principles and their agendas just for them to be able to ensure that the vice president will not be able to surface, in the presidential race, anong namang klase yung impression na maiiwan sa ating mga botante.
That's right.
So yun yung dapat din nila sigurong tignan dito, no? Maraming angulo. Pero yun nga, I think if there's a possibility, definitely there is a possibility.
Well, lastly on my part, Doc, do you think also that somehow the filing of cases or impeachment cases against the president and of course the vice president for that matter is just also parang just to ignite anger to the public, para mas magalit sila, mas lumabas sila sa kalye at magprotesta? Do you think may ganong... yeah, go ahead.
Pwede naman. Kanya lang kasi sa tingin ko ngayon, parang ang mga kababayan natin meron na ring nararamdaman na parang protest fatigue. Napapagod na rin tayo. No? Siguro dahil nga sa napakahabang panahon ng pakikibaka natin at yun nga, yung ating quest for good governance hanggang ngayon inilalaban pa natin. And some of our kababayans, I think, are more bent not really on proving yung kanilang bearing at yung kanilang significance dito sa democratic spaces na meron tayo, but rather I think they're more bent on trying to ensure their very survival, no? Kaya yun nga, yung protest fatigue na yan is something that we need to see. Pero itong impeachment complaints na to, no, whether or not they will push through, it creates the perception among the people na merong katiwalian, merong hindi tamang ginawa, merong hindi na ayon na execute itong mga impeachable officers na to. So it creates a dent on their political capital as well. So if the purpose is to weaken their chances, especially from the perspective of the forthcoming 2028 elections, meron talaga tong epekto, no, sa pareho. And then kung may epekto sa pangulo, may epekto sa pangalawang pangulo, I think magbe-benefit dito kung sakasakali yung mga progressives, no? Kasi kasi sila walang impeachable official na nandito sa ngayon. And again, yung rhetoric na maaari nila ritong ilaban is yung pagkakamali na nagawa natin noong 2022, no? Na binoto yung unity team, and then na dapat si Lenny Robredo among other things, no? Pero that could only happen if they are not going to form an alliance with BBM. Kasi if they're going to form an alliance with BBM and aatakihin nila si BBM, that will also take a toll on their part.
Alright. As always, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras and of course your insights, Dr. Froilan Calilong from the USC Department of Political Science. Good morning po.
Thank you so much. Good morning and God bless.
Now in other news, a routine inspection quickly turned alarming after a bridge in Camarines Sur shook as a heavy truck passed. This prompted Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon to order an immediate assessment. Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos reports.
Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon couldn't help but blurt out curse words when the Mauca Bridge in Lupi Camarines Sur shook as the truck carrying steel bars passed through it while he is conducting inspection. Dizon quickly ordered his team to conduct assessment and repairs, citing potential safety risks to motorists and nearby residents. But that is just one of the issues Dizon found. On Friday, the secretary took a road trip with other DPWH officials along with the media to inspect the Maharlika Highway from Quezon to Bicol Province. The trip, though, was not an easy game. Potholes that is comparable to moon craters welcomed Dizon, followed by seemingly worn asphalt, making traveling difficult for residents and travelers.
Pero issue talaga, malapati talaga. At maraming mga sasakyan minsan, makikita mo dito, pati tin-wheeler, mga nasisiraan, napuputulan ng bulye.
Dizon also inspected the Lopez Viaduct in Barangay Canda Ilaya, Lopez, Quezon Province. The project started in 2022 with a 2.5 billion pesos in budget total but remain unfinished due to gradual budget allocation. The effect? Worsened traffic situation. Flooding is also worse in the area that can reach up to 13 meters. With these findings, the DPWH now plans to halt all the palliative repairs in Maharlika Highway and assign the central office to craft a consolidated plan for the long-awaited rehabilitation. He also inspected the municipalities of Caluag and Tagkawayan in Quezon, as well as Del Gallego and Lupi in Camarines Sur with the same road situation.
Unang-una, kailangan magsimula na ang pagsasaayos ASAP habang hindi pa pumapasok yung tag-ulan. Gagawin nating napaka-taas ng standards para yung mga magagaking kontratista lang na may capability ang pwedeng mag-qualify sa mga sa project na ganito kalaki.
But for now, Dizon is eyeing a temporary repair for the Holy Week just in time to ease the traffic. But once the vacation season is over, the DPWH wants to include bike lanes, drainage system, and lay-by areas to the plan in Maharlika Highway rehab that will undergo consultation with Japanese firms. The budget is no less than 16 billion pesos. Maharlika Highway is the country's longest road network in the Philippines that connects northern Luzon, Samar, down to Mindanao, that has never gone through in-depth rehabilitation upon opening in 1979. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
In weather, Ada has weakened into a tropical depression. It was last spotted some 380 kilometers east of Casiguran, Aurora. Ada is forecast to move generally northeastward before following a looping track east of Luzon. It may be downgraded into a low-pressure area by Wednesday. All tropical cyclone wind signals have been lifted. Now let's get an update on Tropical Storm Ada. We have with us Pag-asa weather specialist Charmaine Varilla. Charmaine, good morning.
Yes, good morning po sir and all our listeners po. And narito ang ulat sa lagay ng panahon. As of 8 a.m., the latest location of Tropical Depression Ada is around 435 kilometers east ng Casiguran, Aurora at may taglay ito ngayon na lakas ng hangin na maabot ng 55 kilometers per hour malapit sa sentro at pagbugso pa na maabot hanggang 70 kilometers per hour. Sa ngayon, patuloy pa rin itong kumikilos pahilagang silangan sa bilis na 10 kilometers per hour. At base sa nakikita nating senaryo ay patuloy na nga yung paghina nito, posibleng ang bahagyang bumaba yung pag-track o pagkilos ito sa mga susunod na araw hanggang sa masabayan ng pagbugso ng northeast monsoon by Wednesday na kung saan patuloy nga itong hihina at magiging isang low pressure area na nga lamang. Wala na rin tayo nakataas na wind signal at gale warning sa alinmang bahagi ng ating bansa, ngunit yung northern and eastern seaboards nga ng Luzon at eastern seaboards ng Visayas, asahan natin yung mga katamtaman hanggang matataas sa mga pag-alon. Kaya mag-iingat po yung ating mga kababayan sa mga paglalayag po sa mga areas na yan dahil may kataasan pa rin ng pag-alon yung ina-expect natin ngayong araw. At yan ang latest mula dito sa Pag-asa Weather Forecasting Center, Charmaine Varilla, nag-uulat.
Okay, so para lang mas malinaw para sa amin, Charmaine, kailan lalabas ng Philippine Area Responsibility?
So nakikita po natin dahil nga sa patuloy na paghina po niya, bago pa man or hindi na ito nakikita na lalabas ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility at dito na nga sa loob ng FAR matutunaw ito by Wednesday onwards.
Okay. And then, other than that, meron pa ba tayong ibang minomonitor na weather systems that would affect our country?
May pinapakita po yung ating tropical cyclone threat potential na posibilidad ng isa na namang low pressure area or mababang chance sa maging isang ganap na bagyo. So as early as Thursday, pwede nating makita yan na mamuo or pumasok dito sa loob ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility sa southeastern periphery. So sa ngayon, babantayan nga natin dahil wala pa naman to dito sa ating mga monitoring satellites.
Okay. So sa ngayon, hindi pa natin nakikita kung ano yung magiging track nito if ever?
May posibleng track na rin po tayo more on gagaya siya sa dinaanan nitong si Bagyong Ada. So dito ulit sa may eastern parts ng Mindanao and Visayas and possible na lumapit din dito sa may southern Luzon.
Pero may possibility na matunaw din siya or malusaw because of amihan.
Yes po, hindi din natin niro-roll out yan or baka hindi rin matuloy as low pressure area. So ito po yung titingnan natin.
Oo, titingnan talaga yan. Kasi kung same track, yung sa may Albay, binabantayan natin yun dahil dun sa nangyayaring activity ng Mayon Volcano. And then, other than that, do we have gale warning and other mga natin, dapat tandaan para dito sa weather?
So sa ngayon po, wala natin tayo nakataas na gale warning pero magiging katamtaman at matataas pa, hanggang matataas pa rin ang mga pag-alon dito sa may northern and eastern seaboards ng Luzon at eastern seaboards ng Visayas. Kaya kung maglalayag man po tayo dyan, ay mag-ingat pa rin po sa matataas na mga pag-alon.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa iyong oras, Pag-asa Weather Specialist Charmaine Varilla. Now, health authorities are monitoring a rise in super flu cases in the country as experts remind the public to stay calm and practice preventive measures. Mobile journalist Francis Rivera.
The Department of Health has reported an increase in the number of cases with more than 70 patients affected by super flu in the country. Super flu is a seasonal influenza. However, due to a muted virus known as H3N2, it has developed 9 mutations. Because of this, the efficiency of vaccines has reportedly decreased. Despite this, the public should not be alarmed about the virus as the situation remains more controlled compared to cases in other countries.
It's not something to panic about. If you compare our cases with US, Canada, and even Japan, which these are countries na their flu season has just started last October, until May. I think at this point in time, we will not be expecting a lot of these cases.
Similar to influenza, fever, headache, cough, and sore throat are the most common symptoms of super flu, which usually last for only 1 week but may progress to severe cases.
Most of these symptoms will disappear within 7 to 10 days. But in some patients, flu can also complicate into pneumonia, severe pneumonia, patients having heart failure, and third, yung stroke. So there are patients that are highly vulnerable to complications of flu that can make it severe and pwede silang ma-admit sa hospital and pwede nilang ikakamatay if these complications will happen to this vulnerable population.
He added that this is far different from the coronavirus or COVID-19, since seasonal influenza is something we experience every year. However, he said that the public should not be complacent.
Yung virus na to, hindi ganun kataas that can cause higher mortality unlike COVID, no? Pero hindi pa rin tayo kampante because if the COVID-19 was severe, there is also a tendency na ang flu can also be like a COVID-19 pag marami ng mutations. For now, itong mga mutations niya are considered minor, no? Hindi siya major mutations.
As an infectious disease expert, he advised the public that it's better to keep our vaccinations up to date against diseases.
Huwag tayong magpanik. Ang pinaka-importante pa rin dito, ang primary prevention is the availability of flu vaccine. No? Now, linawin ko lang yan dahil ang flu vaccine sa Philippines, usually darating yan March, April. So, ang abiso natin dito sa publiko, pag darating na yung bakuna na yan, sana lahat magpapabakuna. No? At yung mga vulnerable population, we encourage them to wear face masks.
Mga kapatid, mobile journalist Francis Rivera, we are One News.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Russian vlogger Vitaly has been deported to Russia, according to the Bureau of Immigration. The BI said Vitaly boarded a flight on Saturday after he was declared an undesirable alien for harassing Filipinos and disrupting public order. Immigration officials said he faced multiple complaints over his alleged prank videos, including incidents caught on camera involving harassment and disrespectful behavior in public. The BI added his name has now been placed on the agency's blacklist, meaning he is barred from returning to the Philippines.
China has filed a diplomatic protest against Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, over social media posts against its leaders. The Chinese embassy said the post violated China's political dignity and crossed the red line. The embassy added that it lodged formal protests with Malacanang, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and the Philippine Coast Guard. Tariela defended his posts, saying they were based on factual evidence, including videos, photos, and official reports. He stressed that his role is to communicate the realities of the West Philippine Sea.
The Transportation Department is reminding motorists that e-driver's license is valid as long as it's shown live through the online portal. Mobile Journal Ivan Tarinque with the story.
The Department of Transportation has once again reminded motorists that the e-driver's license available on the LTMS portal is valid and may be used as an alternative license, especially in cases when drivers accidentally leave their physical license at home. Taxi driver Tatay Manolo has been driving for more than a decade. In his daily routine on the road, there is one thing he can never afford to forget: his driver's license. There have been times when he unintentionally left it at home, leaving him with no choice but to return and retrieve it. This is because the penalty for driving without a license is hefty, reaching up to 3,000 pesos for a first offense.
Dala parati. Siyempre, yan ang hanap buhay namin, yung pagtataksi. Kasi dyan ang gamit namin. Para sa mga iwas ulit.
But for Tatay Manolo and many other drivers who worry about forgetting their license, there is now some relief. According to the Land Transportation Office and Department of Transportation, the e-driver's license accessible through the LTMS portal is valid for use during traffic violations and vehicle inspections, in accordance with the Department Order 2023-015. However, authorities emphasize that screenshots or photocopies are not allowed. The e-driver's license must be opened directly from the LTMS portal or the eGov app and shown in real time to the traffic enforcer. For motorcycle rider Angelo, even with the availability of a digital license, carrying the physical copy remains the better option. It helps avoid inconvenience and reflect responsible behavior on the road.
Mas maganda, lagi nilang dala yung kanilang license. Pero kung sakali man din, mas maganda rin yung merong kang pang-suporta if ever lang naman na maiwanan mo yung lisensya mo sa bahay.
The reminder to motorists is simple. Always bring your physical driver's license when traveling. But in cases when it is accidentally left behind, drivers can rely on the e-driver's license from the LTMS portal. Kapatid Mobile Journal Ivan Tarinque, we are One News.
Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala is now competing in her main draw debut at the 2026 Australian Open in Melbourne. The world number 49 comes into the tournament off a strong start to the season, reaching the semi-finals of the AESB Classic in New Zealand and winning the Kuyong Classic exhibition after beating Donna Bekic. Ayala is currently facing Alicia Parks in the round of 128.
Ay, abangan nila ang resumption, of course, ng Senate Blue Ribbon Committee para doon nga sa kanilang investigasyon sa flood control scandals. There will be a lot of invited na resource speakers. Ang tanong dyan, a-attend ba sila?
Bring out your popcorn. Baka may mga pasabog. Let's see.
But alam naman natin na sa custody pa rin naman ng Senate itong si Curly Descaya.
That's
But
right.
si Sara Descaya has already been detained na di ba? Kasi lumabas na yung warrant of arrest sa kanya. And yung mga DPWH officials or yung mga DPWH officials na nasa under state witness, sila ay I think magsasalita din dyan today along with others like sila Bryce Hernandez and JP Mendoza. Now, for Secretary Bonoan, abangan din natin.
Kung sisipot. Alright, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
Kapatid, all sides, all the time.